Alright guys, so I'm making this video. It's been a while since I posted, but I'm making this just to just talk, just talk about my experiences with concealed carry, the type of guns to conceal carry, and all that. It's really just opinions. So everybody has their own opinions and nobody's wrong. Like at the end of the day, nobody's wrong. If it works for you, it works for you. So just to get on with it, carrying the Glock 26, this and the Kimber are basically the ones I rotate with, depending on the situation. The Glock 42 is pretty much like low threat scenarios. If you're just, in your garage or something, just low threat, visiting a family member or something like that. That's what this is for. If you need the deep concealment, if you need something comfortable, lightweight, and something that you almost forget you have, it's this, something subcompact. The Glock 26 has been my favorite to carry because it's perfect. It's small and it's kind of wide, kind of bulky, but it gets the job done. You get 10 rounds and that's all you need. Realistically, you don't need more than 10 rounds. And that's, we're starting getting into opinions here. Like I said, nobody's wrong, nobody's right. It's just what works for you. About that, if you carry a spare mag, good for you. I would, sometimes I do, depending on the threat, depending on what I'm doing that day. If I'm going into a very crowded area, where there's a lot of crime, maybe I'll carry a spare mag. Maybe I'll carry a different gun. Maybe this is not the gun for that scenario. Everything is situational, I actually just got this 229 and I'm actually going to be at least trying to, I don't know how well it'll work out, but I'll be trying to carry this every day instead of all of these. And, that's just, we'll get into that later. But yeah, it just really, everything's situational, The Glock 30S, I carry this sometimes, depending on, like I said, the threat level, maybe I need concealment, but, I feel like I need more firepower, like I said, not saying the 9mm won't get the job done, but sometimes it just gives you the warm and fuzzies that you got big old 45 ACP. Now, disclaimer, I know everybody's so used to this now. These guns, for the most part, are loaded. And I'm not gonna unload them for the video. Some of them are condition 1, but for the most part, I'm not gonna unload them unless I'm gonna be manipulating them. And really, it's just like common sense, guys. Like, just don't be dumb. Don't point a gun at yourself. Don't put your finger on the trigger, like, and everybody can get along, Don't be afraid that a gun gets pointed at you through a phone. I see those comments all the time and it's just kind of like, come on, guys. You're watching a video on your phone. What are you jumping for? People are like, oh, I jumped when he pointed the gun at the screen. Like, bro, what? Come on. Anyways, besides that, just a disclaimer, like I said, just some of these are loaded, some of them aren't, Obviously, I don't know which ones are. I mean, I for the most part I do, but every time I'm gonna manipulate one, I'm going to check. That's common sense. Treat every weapon as if it were loaded, right? So let's do that. I'm not gonna unload these guns for you, and if I do, we'll find out if it's loaded or not. So, moving on. Carrying the revolvers. So I stopped carrying this little J-frame 32 Smith & Wesson. I stopped carrying it for the simple fact that this hammer, exposed hammer, really digs into your stomach. And I usually wear an undershirt And this actually starts poking holes through it. When you lean over, bend over, you know, for anything, you know, just lean forward while you're driving, sitting in the car or something, you know, it digs in, and it really sucks, you know. But I used to carry this pretty often, you know, maybe for about a year, and then I stopped. And, you know, this is not the everyday carry, you know. Like I said, I have options, you know, depending on the situation. That's really what you should be, you know, like thinking about. Now, I know what you're gonna say, carry one and just be proficient with it so it'll get you through all situations. And that's exactly why I'm trying to carry this one. Because the 229 is not that big, okay? It's not. And I know they'll say it's bulky. Not really, you know? It's pretty easy to conceal. You know, mag is it's 15 rounds, okay? And they say it's heavy. Yeah, it's not that heavy, you know? It's not too bad. So that's just what I'm gonna be trying to carry, and so I can stop carrying these. Carrying a full size, depends, you know? Like I said, depends on what you're doing that day. You know, if I'm going to a very crowded area where there's a lot of people, a lot of potential threats, maybe it is a high crime area, you know, maybe I'll carry something a little bigger, you know, just for my warm and fuzzies, you know. Not saying that this little Glock 26 won't be able to get the job done. Same thing with this 42. It's just warm and fuzzies, you know. It's all situational, and whatever makes you feel better, you know. If you shoot really well on, you know, a full-size Glock and you suck at the 26 or something like that, vice versa, you know, it's all on you, you know. Whatever is more comfortable with you. So moving on, the Kimber has been my it's been in the rotation. It's super easy to conceal this, you know. It's super small grip, it's not too wide, and with the nice holster. If you carry a revolver, I recommend these Filsters. Yeah, the Filster City. Oh shit, this not even a, hold on. Okay, it says Tolster, but I swear this was the City Special, the Filster City Special or something like that. It might be for another gun, which that's a really good holster, by the way. But this one's pretty solid. But yeah, just if you're carrying, you know, the wedge is very important for concealability. But getting to that point right now, if you're licensed or, you know, you live in a free state where it doesn't matter, you know, you don't need a permit. I mean, concealability is definitely a priority, but it's not the end of the world, you know, if you have a tiny little print, because not everybody's looking for that. You know, if you're just grocery shopping, you know, pushing your cart, and you probably see your tiny little bulge coming out of your shirt, what are the chances somebody else is gonna see that? You know, they might just think it's the way your shirt's folded or something, you know. And I'm not saying concealing is not important, because, you know, I'm sure we've all seen the story of the guy at Home Depot who got the cops called on him because he was grabbing something from the top shelf and his gun got exposed, you know. And somebody called the police on him. He had no idea what was going on, and he got gunned down by the police. We all know that story. But even if he had the smallest, even if he was carrying this, you know, depending on where he was carrying or whatever, if you know, depending on his shirt too, you know, he reached upward and it exposed it. So whether it was this or whether it was this, you know, it was probably going to be seen. So really, concealability shouldn't be, you know, you shouldn't overthink it, pretty much, what I'm trying to say. So yeah, a little bulge here and there, it's not too big of a deal, you know. Like, why don't you go around and just start looking at people's waist, you know? See if you can see the bulge, you know? You probably won't, you know? You probably won't. And at that point, you'll be like, damn, you know, am I the only one carrying a gun here? You know? And you probably might be. You know, that's just, and the thing is, you never know. And maybe you do see a bulge, you know? Are you gonna assume, you know, that this guy is carrying a gun? You know, like, are you 100% sure about that? And even if he is, what business is it to you? You know, are you gonna call the cops on somebody who you think is carrying a gun? Even though you got a gun yourself, you know? I don't know, guys. We can talk about this all day. I don't want to make this video too long. It's just kind of ranting almost, so I apologize. But yeah, going back to it, yeah, the revolver is great. Just try not to have a hammer, exposed hammer. And yeah, I love carrying that. It's a 6-shot 357. This is the Kimber K6S. And just having 6 shots of 357 in such a small package, it's just, I mean, you can't beat that. You know, you only need one, you know? Like, look up videos, you know? People getting shot with a 357. You only need one. So if you can get your first shot, you're good. And, you know, unless you're going up against a group of people, you know, again, situational. Like, if you're working at a store, you know, gas station, whatever, you know, you see those things. Usually it's a group. Maybe you shouldn't be carrying this. You should be carrying something like this or something like this. I don't have a Glock 19. Oh, shit. I don't have a Glock 19 here. Sorry, I kind of hit the tripod. I don't have a Glock 19, but this Glock 30S is probably the biggest or the closest in size. But, or actually the SIG's probably close in size, but, you know, we're talking Glocks here. You know, Glock 19 is probably something that you might want to consider instead of the little 6-shot 357. But then again, you know, I'm not saying that's the wrong choice, you know. If you're going to, you know, pull out the 357 against 3 armed robbers, you know, that's on you. You do you. I would never give my life up for somebody else's property, though, you know, unless you're the owner. But I mean, is it really worth your life? You know, they got 3 guns, you got 1, you got 6 bullets combined. They probably have at least 30, and you got 6. Just let them have it, you know. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. You know, your life is important. You know, going home at the end of the day is important. And speaking of that subject, you know, that's, I guess we can talk about, you know, these full size. This is actually a Glock 45, so this is probably the closest I have to a Glock 19. But I do have the Radian, Ramjet, Surefire, and, you know, Holosun. This, I consider these offensive handguns. Same thing with the USP 45. These are offensive handguns, and I'm not going to be carrying this. If you do, good for you, but this is just too much, you know? For me, it's too much for me. I cannot put this appendix. I could, but with the Surefire, oh man, that thing just digs in your, I mean, if you got a holster, obviously it's covered, but still, like, all that bulk just kind of, that's just not for me, you know? This is a bedside / when I go shooting at the range, you know, have something on the holster, the outside the waistband. You know, you always want to have a holster. You always want to have a gun on you when you're out shooting, especially outside, you know, in the wilderness, because, you know, you might be reloading mags, you know, some dude just come up behind you, you don't even know, you know. You'd rather have something on you than, you know, be fumbling around with loading mags, unloaded weapons, you know. Just have something on you. But that's another topic. But yeah, me, I can't. I tried and it just wasn't enjoyable, you know. you know, full size, you know, the Beretta, the USP. I used to carry Beretta. I mean, maybe if you're, you know, long time subscriber, you know, you've seen my Berettas. I love my Berettas. You know, I love them. You can beat them. I'm gonna say you can't beat them. Well, obviously you can, but in my opinion, you can't beat them. Berettas they just work, man. They're so accurate. They don't recoil as much. And man, I love these things. But if I'm gonna carry this, I'm not bringing the light. Unless, you know, I'm like camping or something. As long as I got a holster for it, you know. But for the most part, nah, just by itself, you know. You don't need the light, realistically. And, you know, we can talk about that real quick. Just real quick. Having a weapon light on your concealed carry. I used to carry one. I really did. Every day, I used to carry one. I used to have the stream light on this Glock 42. It made it basically the whole, it gave it a silhouette of like a phone, you know? And, you know, I used to carry that. Same thing with the Glock 26. I used to have a stream light as well. I used to carry the CZ with the little TLR7, you know? I used to. But now I don't. Because you don't need it. Okay? Opinion. It's my opinion. But you don't need it. And, you know, I'll tell you why. Because if you're going to pull your gun out, it's defensively. You're supposed to be pulling your gun out defensively, right? You're not hearing gunshots in the distance and pulling out your pistol and looking for the threat, are you? No, you shouldn't be. You're not law enforcement. You know, if you do that, you're probably going to jail because you're looking for the fight. And you'll probably be the first one to shoot them because they're probably not going to see you coming. So, about that, you know, I know, dark scenarios where you don't need or where you can't see shit. You know, you want a light, positive target identification. I get that. Okay, I do. And I also understand rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I get that. 100%, guys. I get that. Like I said, I used to carry with a light. Sometimes I still will, you know? Like, that's why I have this. Just, you know, it literally fits on any gun. I can put it on any of these guns that have a rail, obviously. And it'll work. So, I just, for the average Joe, when are you going to be in a situation where there is zero lighting? Complete pitch darkness. Or so dark to where you can't identify who's standing in front of you. You know? Realistically, like I said, you're not going through an empty, dark warehouse looking for somebody. You're not law enforcement. And if you are, that's your duty weapon has a light. But as a concealed carrier, you are not doing that. Okay? Realistically, you're not. You know, it's probably nighttime, you know. Maybe, you know, let's talk, you know, theoreticals here. You know, maybe something happens to your car, you're driving, you know, so secluded road, you know, car breaks down, and now it's dark outside. There's no street lights. You just got the moonlight, and you're trying to fix your car. Maybe you got a flat, trying to put on the spare tire, and you know you hear shit behind you. You know, it sounds like footsteps. Maybe, you know, are you gonna pull your gun out and scan with your light? You know, I wouldn't personally, because you don't know. I mean, definitely have it close and ready to draw. You know, you should be training on, you know, quick drawing. But I don't know. I'd probably use my phone light and like look behind me. You know, like obviously, like if you know somebody's there, or it's obvious it's a human, you know, treat that, situation appropriately. But you're not going to be scanning with your weapon light. You're not going to be doing that. That's not a good idea. I wouldn't do that. Okay? Because what if it is somebody, maybe they don't have hostile intentions, maybe somebody's lost in the woods. I don't know, guys. I wouldn't do it. Okay? I wouldn't do it. You can. Not saying you're wrong, but for the most part, it's just, I feel like you don't need it. Okay? If you carry it and it gives you the warm and fuzzies, by all means, that's what it's all about. It's what makes you comfortable, what makes you happy, what makes you feel safe. That's really the message I should be saying. It's whatever makes you feel safe. If you want to carry it. I'm not going to tell you that's wrong, because that's not wrong. Better safe than sorry, right? But for me, I don't need it. And I just fuck, man. Probably shooting myself in the foot here by saying this, but yeah, you don't need a light. Okay, you don't. Go ahead, leave your comments. Like I said, I understand the whole argument. Better or rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I get it. You can carry it, carry it. Okay? I just feel like it's unnecessary for a concealed carrier who's carrying a pistol for defensive reasons. Defensive. We're not on the offense here. We are defending ourselves, our loved ones, depending on your state, your personal property. Like I said, home defense, absolutely. But concealed carrying out and about, you don't really need it. Home defense, like I said, USP 45. It's a pretty big gun, but it's fucking great. I fucking love this gun. It points really, really nice. Speaking of pointing, I kind of wanted to talk about that. And also the reason why I'm switching over to this 229 as my everyday carry. So the Glocks, you can see it right now. You see this grip pitch, the angle? I don't know the exacts. I think it's 22 degrees. 21, 22, something like that. And I noticed with me, I love Glocks. My first Glock 19 is probably the most accurate pistol I've had, better than my Beretta. And I hate saying that, but I was fucking surgical with that Glock 19, which is why I kind of got the Glock 45. But I noticed with Glocks, it doesn't matter what model, because they all have pretty much the same grip pitch. Use this one. I noticed that when I'm aiming this thing, you have to really aim down like that, and it's not natural feeling to me, it's just, see, I always start right here and I'm like, oh shit, I gotta go down. Don't get me wrong, these guns are fucking great. I love Glocks. I'm fucking super accurate with them. It looks like I'm shooting a 22 when I'm shooting a Glock. It's kind of, that's how much I like them, But red dot, it's probably off. But look, this is training, right? You train with your red dot. But for me, I just can't. Okay, on the video I can. But see, naturally, I just aim high, And I have to walk it down. That, for me, is just, training will fix that. But I really started to notice, it's kind of uncomfortable. Kind of hurts, aiming with your grip, almost overextended, It definitely reduces recoil, for me at least, having it so canted forward like this. Like, I have a death grip on this shit, and this is not rising. Like, there's gonna be like no muzzle flip, and that's beautiful. But with like the Berettas or the SIGs, the SIG to be exact, oh, man, this thing is just so natural. Like, look at that. It's just fucking, it's like right there. Like, maybe I'm off to the left or right, but it's like, it's fucking there, you know? Like, just try it out. If you have a Beretta or a SIG or something, I think Smith & Wesson's, the MMPs have less of a grip angle as well. Pretty sure Glock is the worst, you know, when it comes to that. I could be wrong. I mean, this is the worst that I personally have, so I just started to notice that, you know, and it's a lot more comfortable to hold this than it is a Glock. That's just me. You know, the FN is pretty good, pretty solid. It's probably like in between the Glock and like a SIG. Yeah, that grip pitch, so it's a game changer. P01, this is actually my nightstand gun. I usually have a light on it. It's my first gun, if you didn't know. I stopped carrying it. It's definitely a good gun, but just this slide, man. I love this gun, man, but the fucking slide, you know, it just getting that purchase on it. Imagine you got to fucking clear a jam, clear a malfunction, you know, and your hands are sweaty. You know, you already don't have proper grip placement because you're fucking shaking. You had to pull this out so fast just to get shots down range, you know, and maybe you limp wristed it, or, you know, you fucking bumped up against something, the round got caught, failed to extract, and you got to clear that, you know, and you're fucking slipping because you're like, what the fuck, you know, like, no way this shit's fucking happening. And it can happen, like, you know, they got really nice serrations, but man, like, this is so good to shoot. Such a great gun to shoot at the range, you know. But carrying, you know, a lot of people carry this, and good for them. But me personally, I just can't trust myself to be able to manipulate this firearm, like, under stress, you know. And that's why I want to carry the SIG. So this one, you know, it's fucking chunky, man. Like, no matter what happens to this gun, you know, you'll be able to get it back in the fight. Yeah, I know. I'm actually getting a new slide to replace that. But I got snap caps in here, actually. Let's go ahead and make safe. So, you know, chamber's empty. Magazine. No safety, but we can decock. And we got snap caps, right? So, just this right here is the perfect for me. Okay. I specifically got the non-elite, non-legion, because I didn't want that beaver tail, you know, to be in my gut, you know. And they're not that bad, you know. People carry them. But for me, I wanted it to be as comfortable as possible. And you got to remember, as a concealed carry weapon, if you use this, it's going to police evidence lockup. You're not going home with this gun until at least the fucking investigation's done. You know, the courts are, you know, all your court cases, you know, settled. Hopefully you're not going to jail. And even then, you still got to put in, like, paperwork to get this back, you know. Obviously, you probably will, but, you know, a Legion, for example, you know, you might have to drop the gun, literally drop it, you know, drop the gun, fucking, and now you gotta fucking drop your $1,300 fucking Legion on the ground, you know. Like, I'd just rather not, you know. I'd rather carry something basic, something that if I, you know, fucking something happens to this gun, it probably gets shot in a gunfight, you know, who gives a fuck, you know, I'll buy another one, This is literally the cheapest model that they have, the Nitron. Or you can even go as old as like the older ones. People sell them for like $500. You know, might not have a rail, which I would have wanted. I actually wanted one without a rail, but I just lost patience. Just fucking got it. You know, and it's not that big of a difference. But yeah, as far as grip length, you know, it's like perfect. You know, this is just perfect for me. You know, it doesn't print as much. It's about as wide as like the 26. You know, let me show you. Not as long, obviously. I think the 26 is actually a little wider. But you know, remember we talked about the whole printing thing. You know, just wear a bigger shirt. You know, that's really all you need. It's just a bigger shirt. You know, or wear a jacket. You know, it's cold now. It's winter. But yeah, it's perfect for me. Damn, this video is 30 minutes. All right. I'm gonna stop it here. You know, I'll probably cut it, but thanks for watching. Hope to make more videos soon. I know I've been not posting for a while, but yeah, I'll try to get back into it. But yeah, thanks for watching.